Hey everybody, today's episode of the R&R Show is brought to you by Fun Again Games. And hello everybody, and very sadly I cannot say hello to my partner in crime, Ruel Gaviola, who is the other half of the R in the R&R Show. Folks, have you ever had one of those days? I am definitely having one of those days. Just a couple of hours ago, Ruel and I live streamed the latest episode of the R&R, our first one after taking a few weeks off, and everything went perfectly. I mean, I don't think one had ever gone that well before. And I decided to tempt fate and point out, wow, that went really smoothly. We must be knowing what we're doing. I don't, because you will notice there is no Ruel anywhere on the screen, because here's what happened. After we hung up, said goodbye, Ruel went off to his 9th wedding anniversary dinner and date for Top Gun, and I sat down to start to export the video from Twitch so it would make it over to YouTube, and I was getting ready to edit out just this part so we have the game, the main show, but then we also have all the extended, because, man, we talked about a lot of stuff in the extended. It was a good time. The audience was having a lot of fun. We had a level 5 hype train. Amazing things happened. We even unlocked a bonus episode. And so, first thing I do, I go to Twitch. I go to click the export so it'll transfer it over to YouTube, not realizing that I hit the delete key that's right next to it. And I deleted it. And instantly instantly tried to undo. There's no undo. There's no undo. It's gone. I'm like, okay, wow, that really sucks. But that's okay. It's not the first time I made this mistake. Fortunately, while we live stream, I also record a backup, a local copy. No problem. I've got the local backup. I go to check it out. I start to upload it, and then I realize something's wrong with it. This has never happened before, but every time Ruel spoke, his audio was 30 seconds delayed. So every time you see him speaking, he's just quiet. And then every time I'm talking, he's talking at the same time. It's all gobbledygook mishmash. Again, this has never happened in the 44 previous episodes of the R&R show we filmed. But the one time I accidentally delete the main stream is the one time that this weird audio mishmash happens, making the backup completely useless. And Ruel is gone. Again, 9th wedding anniversary. Congratulations, Ruel and Michelle. Greatest couple of people you will ever meet. I hope you enjoy Top Gun. And so I do not have time to get him back here to record it again. I'm getting on a plane in less than 10 hours to fly to Alaska. So it's not like we can film it again tomorrow. So what can I do? Today, it's just the sad and lonely R show. It's the Rahdo wrecked the place R&R show. Well, the wreck starts with the W. And what I'm going to do is, I'm going to give you the same list that Ruel and I just went through, but I'm going to have to play both roles. I just talked to Ruel about all these games. I know what he was thinking. And so hopefully, this only half an R show will provide some sustenance. But like I said, one nice thing is we did unlock a bonus episode, so we'll be back in a few weeks, and I will double, triple, quadruple check, because I never want this to happen again. But anyway, folks, here's what we talked about a couple of hours ago. The top 10 games we'd like to buy right now. We spent a few hours each going through everything that's available on sponsor of the show, Fun Again Games website, one of the best online board game retailers out there. I found a bunch of games I really liked. Ruel found a bunch of games he really liked. We narrowed it down to each of us having 5. That combined is a top 10, and that's what I'm going to walk you through right now. But before we get to that, as always, folks, with the R&R show, there is a contest giveaway. If you are listening, you will hear me. Normally, you're never really sure who's going to say it, but this time you know it's going to be me saying the secret word. And if you catch me saying the secret word, write down the name of the game I was talking about when I said the secret word and send it to sorry, I'm very verklempt. I'm all choked up. Send it to contest@rahdo.com to win a $50 gift certificate from Fun Again Games, which maybe you'll be able to apply towards one of these 10 games I'm about to talk about, because there's a bunch of really cool stuff. And you might be wondering, what is the secret word? I'm glad you asked. It's shark. Shark is the secret word. And at some point, I will mention it. Again, send that game to contest@rahdo.com, and you can win the gift certificate. You have until, we don't know exactly when, because we don't know when our bonus show is going to be. I'm going to guess you probably have until, let's say, July 12th. Maybe July 19th to enter. One way or the other, get that contest entry sent in. But enough of that. Let's move on with the show as best I can, folks. Shall we? Okay, then. We're going to start out the top 10 games we'd buy right now with one that Ruel spotted and is very, very happy about. He absolutely loves this game, and so do I. I think it is fantastic. Number 10 on the list is Floriferous, which is a wonderful, wonderful card drafting game from designer Steve Finn and publisher Pencil First Games. And first of all, the game is stunning. It's absolutely beautiful. In this game, players are just going for a casual walk through a garden, trying to do set collection of a bunch of different flowers. And it has kind of a King Domino vibe, because when it's your turn, whichever flower you grab from a given column, that determines what player order is going to be in the next round. And the interesting thing about this game is you walk from one side of the garden to the other, drafting cards as you go, leaving some behind. Then you refill the garden and walk the other way. And along the way, the main thing about this set collection game is every card can be used as set collection in several different ways, whether it's the type or it's the location, it's whether there's icons on it, there are different ways things score, and it's a surprisingly thinky game. Although, really, sorry, I'm just trying to film this so quick because I don't have much time. I really need to clear my throat. I'm going to clear my throat. Hold on, folks. Oh man, the tough time continues. I forgot. Streaming with this software, I cannot pause like I normally do. So I just had to edit that bit out. But anyway, the game really is a very chillaxed, laid-back experience. Just grabbing some cards. They're all beautiful, trying to make proper sets. But there is real crunchy depth because there are so many different ways you could score. And often you are desperate to get one particular card that the other players can see too. And will you beat them to it? Well, players are in control of the turn order, and it makes for a very, very fun time with Ruel's number 10, Floriferous. Then we move on to number 9 on our communal list, Dungeons, Dice, and Danger. And I put this on the list because it's from designer Richard Garfield. And if that name means nothing to you, maybe you've heard of a little game of his called Magic the Gathering. Richard Garfield is definitely earned his place as one of the premier board game designers in the world. And anytime he puts out something new, I think it's worth looking at, especially because this is a roll and write. I could be wrong, but I don't think he's done a roll and write before. And I love roll and writes, and I love dungeon crawls. And this is a dungeon crawling roll and write from designer Richard Garfield. And it looks great. The game comes with several different dungeons that you can delve, and every round there's going to be 5 dice rolled. 4 of them, the 4 white dice, every player, bingo style, at the same time, combines those into 2 different numbers. Like the ones that are on the screen, I could turn that 3 and 4 into a 7, and then I could turn the 6 and the 1 into a 7. Or I could generate a 10 and a 4. And basically, this dungeon is full of rooms that are numbered 2 through 12, and whatever combo I make, I'm going to fill in 2 rooms. But as you might imagine, once you filled in 1 room, that opens up additional rooms because you always have to, explore from a given room and go deeper and deeper. So you're making interesting choices about which rooms you're going to go to, what opportunities you're going to open yourself up for, and what are you going to deal with, because every dungeon has unique rules. There's monsters, there's treasures, all kinds of fun stuff. And then there's an extra twist too, because whoever is the lead player in a given round also rolls the black die, and they can swap out the black die for one of the white die, so they have a little bit more control. It all looks very fun, and I really got that impression from watching Z Garcia of the Dice Tower. I watched him this morning, and he really liked it. And yeah, I was already predisposed to want to check it out, but dungeon crawl, gorgeous looking, from Richard Garfield, roll and write. Yes, please. That's number 9, Dungeons, Dice, and Danger. Then we move on to number 8, which I wish Ruel was here to talk about. So, You've Been Eaten, which is a very, very cool game. He was really intrigued by this, mostly because of designer Scott Almes and also artist Quan Chai Moria. That is a great combo, but there's more to it than that. This game is actually a head-to-head with each player playing a radically different game. One player is an astronaut miner who's come to a mysterious cave looking for crystals that they can mine and score points. The other player is a gigantic space worm, and the mysterious cave is actually the belly of the worm, the belly of the beast. And so one player is literally trying to digest the other player by deploying acids and enzymes and stuff like that. And again, each player is playing a radically different game. Can the astronaut make it out before he gets completely dissolved with enough crystals? Is the space worm going to have a good meal? Well, it's up to players to decide, and it's a very, very fun, silly game. And another interesting thing about the game is that you can actually play a great solo version, where you will, as a solo astronaut, go up against an automated space worm belly, or you can be the belly of the beast going up against an automated space miner. So you've got little Otama players that will work either way. So you've got 2 solo games for the price of 1 in this box if you're looking for solo play. And then there's an extra fun little bit too, which is that if players want to, they can actually have the automated miner go against the automated belly of the beast and have a 0-player game, which I actually demonstrated when I did a run-through for this when it was on Kickstarter last year. And so there's a lot of neat stuff. It's got a great presentation, really quirky sense of humor to it. And one more thing that we talked about when Ruel was here before I blew everything up is the fact that, let's see, you've been eaten. Let me go ahead and do a search. Fun Again Games, as I understand it, has the exclusive distribution for the Collector's Edition, which is the same game, but it comes with some extra gameplay content and triple layer boards, really deluxeified game components, and I gotta say, personally, one of the coolest little dice trays I've ever seen, made out of cardboard. This was the one that came with my prototype, and even though I sent my prototype on to the next reviewer, kept this for myself because I like it so much. You will often see this appear in run-throughs. I just pop it on screen, I do some rolling of dice. So you can get one of these deluxe ones that I haven't stolen. Wink, wink. Nobody needs to know about that. And triple layer boards for a very, very fun and quirky and clever asymmetric dual or solo game. Number 8, So You've Been Eaten. Okay, then we go on to number 7. One that I was very near and dear to my heart, Carnegie. I so desperately want to play this game personally because it's from one of my favorite designers of all time, Xavier George. He's behind Twa with his co-designers from Pearl Games. Oh my gosh, so many games. Carson City. I mean, he's got a laundry list. One of my top 10 designers of all time. And this is his latest big, heavy, crunchy Euro. And very sadly, we covered this for the Rahdo Runs Through channel, but Shay did the run through instead of me. And I'm still thinking about that. I just didn't have time in my schedule to be able to do it. So Shay stepped up. He had a great time. He loves it. He can't stop raving about it. And it's finally available for folks to be able to pick up. And I can't wait to give it a go because it is such a deep and crunchy combo-tastic Euro-style game. Every player has their own board, which is their corporate headquarters. Over the course of the game, you invest in it by building rooms that activate different powers, but you've got to get your employees into rooms. You can move them from one room to another. But every round, when you're the lead player, or I'm the lead player, I'm going to pick one of 4 primary business actions we can do. Whether it's, production of goods, or retail stuff, or expansion, or whatever. And everybody gets to do that action when I set it, when it's my turn. But that means everybody's got different rooms that do these different actions, and maybe now's not a good time for you to do deliveries. And so I want to do it because all of your delivery rooms aren't manned by any employees because you move them into other areas. So there's a lot of really interesting interplay. And, it goes both ways. I could try to, do things that won't help you but help me. Or maybe I'm looking saying, oh, you're really low on resources. You're probably going to do deliveries on your turn. Or, goods production or whatever. I better get some of my people into position to be prepared for your turn. I love the ideas here. And then there's like a whole nother half of the game where we're actually trying to make investments across the continental United States. And we have to send our workers from our corporate offices out into the field, so we have less things we can do in the corporate office. It all looks really, really great. Xavier George, again, one of the best designers ever. Shay loved it. You can watch the original preview on the channel. It looks so smart, and it's finally now available at retail, which is why it's number 7 on the list. Carnegie. Then we move on to number 6. Canopy, which Ruel actually is very familiar with this game. In fact, he's actually done run-throughs of it, both solo and two-player with his wife Michelle. And you can check those out on his YouTube channel. Hit that eye in the top right corner of the screen. Even though he's not here, you can get some Ruel action. He actually archives all of his live streams, apparently a little bit better than I do, on his YouTube channel. And so you can watch him and Michelle play Canopy. And I'm definitely curious to give it a go myself because, geez Louise, it's so gorgeous. So pretty, this game, with art from Vincent Dutray, one of my favorite, or one of, I think, everybody's favorite artists working in the board game industry. A very, very sharp and clever set collection game set in a rainforest where we're trying to get all the different flora and fauna to score points. I'm so sad. Ruel actually talked about the gameplay here because he's demoed it. He's really comfortable with it. He loves this game. He did point out there's a little bit of cutthroatedness. There are a few cards that you can use to kind of mess over your opponent, but he's pretty confident if you want to, you could just take those out and it wouldn't hurt the balance of the game. And it looks so pretty. And again, if you want to know more, hit that eye, go check out Ruel's YouTube page, and you can watch him and Michelle playing. Number 6 on the list, Canopy. Oh my goodness. Okay, but now let's move on to number 5. Another stunningly gorgeous game, Bitoku. And here's the reason I put this on our communal list, folks. It's available on the Ding and Dent page of Fun Again, which means you can get it for an incredibly low price if you don't mind a couple of dents in your box. The game itself, those components are fine. If you don't mind a little rip or a dent or whatever, this is definitely worth checking out because this is widely looked upon as one of the best games of last year. A big, crunchy, heavy game where players are competing to become the new guardian of the forest. The art and presentation of this game looks like it's a Miyazaki film turned into board game form, and it's also a really clever dice worker placement game where you put your dice out to do an action immediately that other players can piggyback on if they've invested in those worker placement spots, but then those dice can upgrade, or not upgrade, they can basically jump up to higher levels in the forest and get access to more and more powerful turns following this, I guess, kind of like dynamic tech tree almost. It's a really unique design, and it's got almost Vita Lasarda level heaviness, a crunch built into it. This looks just like a lovely, gorgeous game, but it is dense, it is heavy, it is smart, it is long, it is sharp, and it's one of the best games of last year, and you can get it at Fun Again Games for such a low price. I could not put it on this list. Number 5, Bitoku. Then we go on to number 4, another one Ruel wanted to talk about, Batman: The Dark Knight Returns. And there were, Ruel admitted, he hasn't looked too deep into the gameplay of this one. He really put this on the list, and I can't blame him for 2 reasons. One, the nostalgia is strong in this. For folks who don't know, Batman the Dark Knight is one of the premier, most important comic books in comic book history. Back in the 80s when it came out, it revolutionized the industry. And it's still many consider one of the greatest comic books of all time, one of the greatest Batman stories of all time. But more than that, Ruel was really intrigued because this is now telling the story of the 4-issue epic graphic novel of Batman the Dark Knight Returns in cardboard form as a board game, and it's designed by Daryl Andrews, who is one of the better designers working today. Surely, maybe you've heard of Sagrada, which Daryl co-designed with a friend of his, Adrian. So Daryl is known for, I've certainly played a bunch of Daryl's games, and I've always been very impressed. I have to admit, when I first saw this, I thought, I don't know, is this just going to be just a quick, cheap, trying to piggyback off the success and fame of this game? Maybe it was going to, but doesn't really matter. Those concerns, I think, are gone when Ruel pointed out that Daryl was the designer on it. It looks fantastic using all the old Frank Miller art, and again, Daryl is definitely a designer to watch for, which is why Ruel put this number 4 on our list, Batman: The Dark Knight Returns. And I have to admit, he got me excited about it too, and I hadn't originally been. I'm not the biggest Batman fan. Gasp, don't tell anybody. Anyway though, let's move on to number 3. And if ever I'm doing a top 10, it's going to be hard for me not to include some version of Aeon's End. And this month we've got Aeon's End: Legacy of Gravehold. One of the reasons I put this on is because it's another huge savings that can be gotten with a Ding and Dent version. You can pay a little bit more for the first version, but why not save a few bucks and get the ding and dent, especially because what's really important is the content inside the box. And oh my gosh, I've talked about Aeon's End so much, including today, earlier, before I blew everything up and realized I had to record this R show by myself, the R and Lonely show. Anyway, though, but in a nutshell, Aeon's End is so sharp because, as far as I'm concerned, it is the greatest fantasy cooperative deck building game of all time. Unlike pretty much every other deck builder, this game gives you more control over your deck than any other game you've ever seen because you don't shuffle the deck. You discard cards in a particular order because that's the order you want to play them in future rounds. But so you have more control over the deck, but you don't have control over the turn order. The game has this brilliant system for determining whether we go as the players trying to fight off a horde of super bad guy monsters in all shapes and sizes. I mean, there's been so much content for Aeon's End now. There's been octopus monsters and shark monsters and Cthulhu monsters. I mean, it's just, foresty monsters, humanoid monsters, betrayer monsters. And this game seems like it has more monsters, more nemesis than ever before. More heroes than ever before. Because this is kind of, when I covered this when it was on Kickstarter last year, I likened it to Aeon's End Endgame. If you're familiar with the Marvel Cinematic Universe, they had 10 plus years of movies, all intertwined, storylines, characters, and all that, and it all built to a head for Infinity War and Endgame, where all these stories were building towards this one moment. That's kind of what Legacy of Gravehold is. All of the characters from all the previous versions of the game come back with new powers and new designs and are interacting in new and interesting ways in this ultimate final showdown between the forces of good and evil. Except it's not as simple as that. There are definitely shades of gray in a storyline that I personally found very compelling. Because you can play this as a legacy game through a multi-chapter story, not ripping cards up, but writing on cards, putting stickers on stuff. And I love legacy stuff. I thought it worked really well here. Not everybody does. Sometimes people just want to play the game. And if you want, you can ignore the legacy, just open the box and then open every envelope and you'll just have access to everything. And it's more Aeon's End than we have ever had before. It's a huge smorgasbord of gameplay, and because of the ding and dent, you can get it a bit cheaper than normal. And if you've ever been interested in Aeon's End, this is a good place to start because you will get so much gameplay out of this, so much content, more than we've ever seen before. And that's number 3. Aeon's End, Legacy of Gravehold. But now let's move on to number 2, Star Wars Outer Rim. In much the same way that it's hard for me not to do a top 10 talking about Aeon's End, it is always hard for Ruel not to do a top 10 talking about Star Wars because the man loves that galaxy far, far away so much. And he recently, you can go check out, again, his YouTube page. He did a run-through of Outer Rim, fell in love with it. The original game is a huge and epic pick-up and deliver adventure game where we are basically, bounty hunters, smugglers, ne'er-do-wells, working the Outer Rim, trying to pick stuff up and deliver it elsewhere while staying one step ahead of the Empire. And apparently, from all reports, it does it brilliantly. It truly captures the spirit and the feel of Star Wars like few games have. And so, of course, Ruel is going to shout from the rooftops about unfinished business, which when he was talking about it, he was saying he's already heard reports from people who've gotten it. It does a great job of bringing in new ships, new characters, and again, keeping the spirit of Star Wars alive and giving you so many more adventures. So I couldn't blame him for his enthusiasm. Hey, I like Star Wars too, but man, Ruel loves Star Wars, which is why Star Wars Outer Rim made our number 2. But you know what? Even more than he loves Star Wars, I'm even going to say we both love Ryan Lockett, which is why Now or Never, the latest magnum opus, maybe the most magnum of opuses from designer artist Ryan Lockett, is now available at retail. And I've already done a run through of this when it was on Kickstarter, and I gotta say, in my experience, this is the biggest, richest, deepest game Ryan has ever designed. And that's saying something. This is actually the culmination of a series of games Ryan's been working on in a connected fantasy universe that he has. It started with Above and Below, and then we saw it in Near and Far, and then there's been some other spin-off games that have also had adventures in, I think it's called the Azrium fantasy universe. I forget, I might have that wrong. But the important thing is this is, again, this is another culmination after all the events of the previous games, we are now having to rebuild the world from a cataclysm. And it's interesting. I mentioned some of the other big box games in this series. Above and Below was a kind of Euro-y worker placement game with a little bit of story. Near and Far, the next game in this series, was a big, expansive travel the world, have narrative adventures, and do some Euro-y gameplay, but really more focused on the adventure. Now or Never combines those things. It is equally focused on the narrative, world-spanning adventures and saving people and fighting monsters and all that, but also a huge focus on a really rich and deep Euro-style game that harkens back, I should say, to a classic from Rudiger Dorn. If you've ever played Goa, one of the OG greats of modern Euro board game design, this kind of has that same idea, because in front of each player, you've got your board that represents your character with special abilities that you can level up and go have adventures, but next to you is another board that represents how you're investing in rebuilding the capital city after the cataclysm. And so you've got an empty grid where you're going to do tile laying to rebuild the city, based on the adventures and the rewards you get going on and adventuring, how all these things tie together. But the interesting thing is, everybody has a grid, a 4x5 grid of all the buildings you can build, but they've all been randomized. And when I want to build a building, the first building I have to build has to come from the outer edge of that grid. And once I've taken that lets me get to one of the inner buildings. And once I've taken that inner building, I can get deeper and deeper. So it's almost kind of like when you're trying to build your own buildings, you have to make these long-term plans. I really want to build that one that's 2 columns up and 1 column over. But that means I've got to build at least one of these other 3 buildings first to get to it. And so trying to find synergy between all of that. And then that's just the start, because once you build, you have to take those tiles and build them on your own personal board and expand. Once you put one building down, the next one has to go adjacent to it. So you're systematically dismantling this one grid and reconfiguring it and rebuilding it in a different place, while at the same time doing a big, sprawling, expansive narrative adventure quest game. And the two things meld together brilliantly. Like I said, I think is Ryan Lockett's best design to date. It's Now or Never, and it is the number 1 game of the R show. Apologies to Ruel, but still, Ruel was here in spirit. And folks, we have made it to the end. Did you hear me say the secret word? Did you hear me say shark? If so, you know what to do. It says it right there at the bottom of the screen. Send the name of the game I was talking about to contest@rahdo.com, and you can win a $50 gift certificate. And who knows? Maybe you might want to pick up one or more of those games. The $50 gift certificate will cover shipping around the world and all of that. And that's it. And my apologies to everybody. Oh man, it was such a great stream today. So many wonderful things. I am such an idiot. Everything fell apart. But hopefully this goes one step towards making good by spending a little bit more time today, because I got to go get packed. I'm getting on a plane tomorrow morning to go to Alaska. And but still, I had to get the R&R up because those were 10 really phenomenal games. So I want to say thank you to Ruel. Thank you to you, the audience, for your infinite patience in my goofs. Did I ever mention I tend to make goofs in my videos? This one was a bit bigger than normal, and Paulo couldn't fix it with Klingon subtitles. But we'll be back again in the month of July doing another R&R, and I promise I'll be more careful. So thanks to Ruel, thanks to you, and also thanks to sponsor of the show, Fun Again Games. Have a very nice day, everybody. Talk to you later. So long. Bye-bye.